Hiya! Welcome! So rather than this being Records Roundup number 70, it's rather Records Roundup number 0070. Of course, this is a special edition of my regular look at my additions to my record collection, because this is all about James Bond movie soundtracks. I've been wanting or thinking about collecting Bond soundtracks for a while now. I'm a big fan of the movies, as most people watching will know. The music on the films generally, you know, it has its highs and lows, but on the whole, I think they're really good scores. You know, the composers who they get involved, and we've got some great composers to look at here today, are all, in my opinion, really suited to the 007 franchise. And of course, I've been watching a lot of the old videos from our friend Martin Harris, who's done quite a few Bond related videos, such as ranking the Bond actors, the Bond themes, which I've also done, the Bond films. I think he hasn't done a full soundtrack album ranking yet, because he's missing one. It might be Never Say Never Again, which I don't count as real Bond, because it isn't really. But, you know, fair enough if Martin is looking out for a cheap copy of that, which apparently is pretty difficult to find unless you're willing to pay quite a lot of money. Anyway, I think we've got 7 albums here, so a nice kind of start to this collection that I'm not expecting to complete in any rapid time, if at all, but it's just albums that I'll pick up along the way. The obligatory male opening at the end as well. And there was supposed to be another album, another Bond soundtrack here, but it's not turned up yet. It's from a site I've used before, but the last time I tried to use them, which was ironically for another soundtrack, the Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels red vinyl reissue. And I ended up actually buying that from my local record shop, Tallbird. But I had to get a refund on that because there's just no movement on it, and I'm a little worried that the same's happening again for this one. So I'll be chasing that up, and if and when it comes, you'll see it on an upcoming Records Roundup, no doubt. But on we go. Let me show you what I've got so far to kick off this Bond soundtrack collection. It's all on vinyl. There's some of those reissued expanded CDs that have been tempting me. I think the price for those, considering the CDs, is a little on the high side, but they are limited in quantity, and they do tempt me, especially as some of those are difficult to find on vinyl, or they haven't been released on vinyl anyway. Right then, just LPs today. I'll show you this one first, which was a pickup from Dig Vinyl, one of my favourite online record stores from Liverpool, and it is a Japanese pressing of The Spy Who Loved Me. So the composer for this is Marvin Hamlisch. I can't remember if this was his only Bond score or not. It might say on screen, I can't remember. What attracted me to this edition was the fact that it came with its Obi strip still intact. A lot of Japanese vinyl, second-hand and of this age, which is getting on for nearly 50 years now, you'll find the Obi missing, but as you can see, we've got it here. And I've never owned a proper Japanese record before, so this is a first for me. I've ordered records from Japan, but ironically they've always been stuff that, with the arguable exception of one of New Order's singles, which was meant to be a Japanese exclusive, but then I found out after the fact it's easy to get in Europe anyway. I believe this is my first proper Japanese record, certainly my first Japanese album. What was the price of this? It was pretty reasonable, I think, around 20 if memory serves. I did buy something else with this, but I've already shown that on a previous video. A little look. Standard black vinyl, obviously, and from 1977, when the film came out. Great film. I'll try not to talk too much about the actual films, because we could be here all day otherwise if I do that. There's a nice insert in here, which a lot of Japanese vinyl comes with. Yeah, I'm just really pleased with the condition of this. It was one I didn't really expect to find. I was just doing a James Bond search at pretty much every website I've ever used for record buying, and this one came up at Dig Vinyl, who I've always had exceptional customer service from. And when it said that, you know, it was in very good plus condition, I think they said at least, and it had its OB intact and all the rest of it. I thought, yeah, let's get The Spy Who Loved Me. So, of course, the theme, which appears at the beginning of side 1 and presumably a different type of version at the end of side 2, is Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon. So that one is The Spy Who Loved Me. These aren't in any order of when I bought them, or of course they're not in any order of when the films came out or the albums came out. They're just how I grabbed them, really. But the next two are two pickups from another record shop I've been really impressed with lately, Flashback, down in London, or more specifically they've got branches in Shoreditch and Islington, but their website is excellent. A lot of stuff on there I'd love to get, and I'm just stopping myself from adding certain bits to my collections here and there that Flashback seem to be pretty good at getting in that no one else is. But anyway, two Bond soundtrack albums from there. The first one, I was really pleased to see this one, the very first James Bond film, Dr. No, the score for this, and it's a reissue from I think 2018, still got its hype on it. It is, as you can see, red vinyl, although it's just advertised as coloured vinyl, but it is red, I did check. I mean, this album has been reissued a ton of times, but when I saw this particular edition on coloured vinyl, it was a must-have, really. I do really like the music in Dr. No as well. It's got that calypso sound to it. Obviously, much of the film is set in Jamaica, so that's pretty understandable. And yeah, there we go, in an iconic white bikini there is of course Ursula Andress. So we'll get this out and have a look. I don't think this was classed as new, but it came unsealed anyway. There we go. Nice red disc there. It's looking a little bit dark on camera. I like it a lot. Fantastic film. I mean, it was the one that started it all. At the time, obviously, no one knew exactly how massive, how gigantic and world-encompassing the 007 movie franchise was going to be. At this point, it was just an adaptation of one of Ian Fleming's spy novels. But yeah, great film. Great soundtrack. Really pleased I've got this particular red vinyl reissue, Dr. No. And the second one from Flashback is, quite appropriately, you've seen the soundtrack for the first Bond film. Now here's the soundtrack for the very last, or the latest Bond film. It won't be the last. Expect an announcement about who the new James Bond is sooner or later, I'm sure. I have heard rumours, but no one's confirmed anything yet. But of course I'm talking about No Time to Die, and as this one was the one available at Flashback and I already had Dr. No in my basket, I thought, yeah, blow it, I will get this one. It's the picture disc, of course, or one of the picture disc variants. This came out in a lot of different variants. I think Martin Harris has got all of them. I was dithering a little bit over this because this being a one disc picture disc, it doesn't have as much on as the full 2 LP soundtrack album, but I don't think I'm going to double up with this. I'm 99% sure I won't anyway. This sort of one disc version I think is going to be good enough for me. I'll give you a look at the disc, but we've got Nomi, the new 007 on side A, and on side B we've got the lovely Madeline. So really nice picture disc. I do love a picture disc, and the price of this was reasonable. I nearly picked up the Daniel Craig picture disc of this at Tallbird when I shopped there a few months back, and I stopped myself because at that point I was still saying to myself, no, you're not going down the Bond soundtrack rabbit hole. But yeah, I've gone down it and then some over the past couple of weeks. But yeah, pleased to have that. No Time to Die, the Nomi and Madeline picture disc version. Oh, and the music is by Hans Zimmer, of course. We move on to my first purchase from At The Movies, which is essentially a subsidiary of Music on Vinyl, the Dutch company who do a lot of reissues. At The Movies is basically their soundtrack arm, and although they did have this album up on the Music on Vinyl website, it was a little bit cheaper at The Movies, plus by registering on that site I also got a 10% off code. So the price of this, including I think £9 in international postage but no taxes, This was just over 30, I think, which I think for a 2LP reissue, brand new, is very reasonable, and it is my very favourite Bond film of all time. Anyone who knows me knows that I absolutely adore Casino Royale. And the score is by, if I can find it, David Arnold, of course. It does say on screen, but I like to vocalise these facts as well. So it's a limited edition of 1,500 numbered copies on gold vinyl, includes a poster, 2 printed inner sleeves, blah blah blah. My number is 000527, and it makes a point of saying on the back, this album does not contain a Chris Cornell recording. So that's quite a common thing, I think, particularly with later Bond soundtracks. They don't tend to feature the actual Bond theme, you know, like Billie Eilish's No Time to Die isn't on the album I just showed you, but I think there's an instrumental or orchestral type version. I've not listened to any of these yet, so I can't really sort of speak with any expertise on it. But let's get this open for a bit of a look. As it is essentially a music on vinyl product, it does come in the obligatory adhesive outer sleeve, but it is gatefold. Some lovely images there from what is, for my money, the greatest James Bond film ever made, and one of the best movies, full stop, ever made, really. Yeah, it's very nice and glossy, this, actually. I really like this. It's a fairly new reissue. This came out possibly last year, I think, and copies are still widely available. I'll get one of the discs out and show you. Real glossy inner sleeve here. Some great music on this film as well. I mean, that adds to what is already an exceptional piece of filmmaking. So there we go, that's one of the discs. The other one will look the same, apart from very slight differences on the centre label, obviously. So good stuff. I won't bother getting the poster or anything else out of it. Just A, to keep this video going at a reasonable pace, and B, because I don't want to be faffing around and potentially damaging stuff while I'm stood up here struggling to get things back where they should be. But I just wanted to show you these, I was going to say editions, but it's the start of my Bond soundtrack collection. And as I said earlier, it's not a collection I expect to complete, maybe ever. I think probably I will eventually, but there'll have to be some CDs bought, I'm sure. And as I say, these new limited expanded editions, I think they're pricey for what they are, but they have got a lot more stuff on them than the original releases had, and I'm always a sucker for a limited edition. But that is David Arnold's Casino Royale. Right, we've got one more before the mail opening, and this was from a website I've not used in a fair while, but I do recommend them and rate them. It's Sister Ray. I think they're in London. Basically they sell new vinyl. They've got a bricks and mortar store, and I've used them for certain things in the past. But they were one of the few sites who had this in stock at what I thought was a reasonable price. It wasn't cheap, it was, I think, a bit under 40, including postage, but there again, it is a 2LP set, I think. Yes, it is. It is the soundtrack for Spectre, and it is the white vinyl edition, so this is another reissue. Came out, I think, was it early this year? Could have been early this year, actually, on the Decca label. The score is by Thomas Newman. We'll get this open because I've not shown any white vinyl today, and I think this is the last coloured disc of the day as well. Spectre was a great film. I mean, I'm a big Daniel Craig Bond fan. He's my favourite Bond, and they've all got the pluses, and maybe a couple of them have got minuses as well, but on the whole, it's a franchise that I love. Even the worst film in the series, I can sit and enjoy and really get immersed in. And Spectre certainly is kind of like a prelude to No Time to Die. Is a really good film. I watched it again not that long ago when I just did a whole Bond marathon from start to finish, and I enjoyed it more than I did previous watches. It's a grower, I think, Spectre for me. So there we are, one of the discs here on white vinyl. I don't own many soundtrack albums. I've got a few dotted here and there, such as the aforementioned Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. I've got stuff like 24 Hour Party People on CD and a version on vinyl now as well. but that's more for my New Order collection than anything else. There's other things like the Salvation soundtrack. There again, it's New Order related. But being a fan of the movies, I like the books as well, by the way. I've just not read them all. I don't even think I've read half of them. But the ones I did read, and I'm going back some years, probably best part of 15 to 20 years ago when I first started them. And then I kind of fell away from reading them, but really I need to start downloading them back on my Kindle. So Spectre there, Thomas Newman score, and finally a mail opening to do. There's 2 albums in here, eBay auction wins. I wasn't really intending to be buying Bond soundtracks on eBay, only if there was a particularly exceptional deal, but I hadn't participated in a proper eBay auction in a little while. One of these in particular was a really good price. The other one, probably double the first one, but I think generally when I was looking at the values on Discogs, you know, I got a good deal on both of them really, and you know, the seller had good feedback. The photos, they seem to be in really good condition for their age, because although they're reissues, they are 1970s reissues. The first one I'll show you, or has that been separated out? No, they're just both in that protector there. First one is Goldfinger, of course a John Barry score. John Barry, probably the composer most associated with Bond. This is a Golden Film Music Series reissue from sometime in the 70s. It says on screen what I won it for on eBay, just a little over a tenner. And the seller, as he was running numerous auctions, and these were the 2 that I bid on and won, he combined postage, so I got a bit of a reduction in postage for these 2 as well. We can see some other non-Bond related releases from this label, Sunset, on the back. There we go, standard black vinyl. Sure, it plays fine. I'm not going to worry too much about inspecting it, but of course I'll give it a dust and a clean and what have you before I do play it. So Goldfinger, so the final one, have you guessed what it is yet? I did say it was a reissue that came out in the 70s, so that should give you a clue that it's not a 70s Bond movie. Of course Goldfinger was 64, and this one I think was 1967. There you go, you know what it is now. It's You Only Live Twice. So this one ended up winning it for I think a little over 20, which is a lot for a 70s pressing, I think. But I did check it on Discogs database, and that wasn't actually a bad price really that I paid for it, and this is a particularly nice condition copy as well, so I'm happy enough. You know, it's just nice to win some auctions, get a couple of Bond movie soundtracks, especially from the same seller. You know, it's convenient when it's from the one seller, obviously. Yeah, it's just in a plain inner there, I'm not going to worry too much. Great film again, they're all great films, I don't need to tell you that. Love the artwork on the back as well as on the front. Another one on the Sunset label who were reissuing at least a couple, if not more, of the Bond soundtracks in the 70s. Although this one, unlike Goldfinger, isn't classed as part of the Golden Film Music Series for some reason, but oh well. Does list other things that they've got in their range there. Yeah, they list From Russia With Love, that's the soundtrack I'd really like, and another one of my all-time favourite Bond films. It does list Goldfinger, which I just showed you as well. So there we go, You Only Live Twice from John Barry.
How you found me, I tried to hide from your love, like heaven above me, the sky above me. Just keeping all my secrets safe tonight. Nobody does it better. Sometimes I wish someone would. Nobody does it quite the way you do. Why'd you have to be so good?
And that is the Bond soundtracks to show you today, and I'll be looking out for more, obviously. I thought it would be a fun video to do, this Records Roundup 0070, given that we've got a bit of a Bond theme with the Smules this month, so I thought this chance to start collecting the soundtrack LPs would be a nice tie-in to Bond month here on the channel. But thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed this. Special thanks go to my wonderful subscribers and generous patrons. I'm going to go now, start listening to all these Bond soundtracks. Which one would you listen to first? Let me know in the comments. Should I do it chronologically, as in Dr. No all the way up to No Time to Die in a proper order? Or shall I just pick one at random, stick it on the turntable and enjoy some of that class James Bond movie music that you all know that I love and that I hope and I'm sure that I'll be showing you some more of in upcoming records roundups. Once again, thank you for watching this special edition for Bond month here, and please will you join me again next time for my next record collecting video. Cheers everyone. See ya!